the workshop that we were gonna do, or we are proposing to do for the recall ordinance. It was brought up to us that we do not have a local ordinance for recalling elected officials. We do have verbiage in the town charter that allows us to do that, or allows the citizens to do that. There's also a state statute that allows to do that. We've had a lot of email traffic back and forth for and against it. Why it's good, why it's dangerous. So prior to us getting into what frankly going to be a whole bunch of nights of work for this ordinance, I'd like to do what we've done and during the budget meetings, and I'll look for a consensus from the council on whether we want to go down this road or not. If we have a consensus that we do, we will start digging into it. If we don't, we will allow each councilor a few moments to speak on why they don't want to pursue this right now, and then we will just put it on the back burner if you want to pursue it in the future. We just don't want to wrap us up into something that when we get to a vote 2 or 3 months down the road is going to fail anyway. So with that being said, I'll just go to a quick consensus. Sam, do you want to work on the recall ordinance?
I would say I want to work on the recall ordinance. I'm happy to hear out, honestly, you know, besides the emails and everything else the councilors have to say about it. But I for one, not necessarily against an ordinance, just to your point, and I think it's what I brought up in the past about the state law being there, and also the fact that our charter provides an option for citizens to petition to enact ordinances of at any time. I think the process is, albeit not direct, there is something available to hold us councilors to account.
All right, Paul?
Yeah, I'm not in favor of moving on this right now, which doesn't preclude me from changing my mind at some time in the future. You know, first of all, we have within the town charter, we have language that says any member of the town council who shall be convicted of a felony or misdemeanor involving moral turpitude. One of those questions, which I'm not sure anybody can actually answer what that means, possibly. While in office shall after due notice, and not less than 14 days, and have a hearing, and then shall forfeit his office. So we have language in the town charter that sort of sounds similar to the state legislation, which I think, you know, we've talked about, which is basically that you would be, you know, if you're convicted of a crime, then you know, you can obviously be recalled. We always have that as a backup. You know, I took some time to read. I think Tim, like last month, you guys put together a list of, I think it came from Kennebuck actually, when they had done some reviews of all the recall ordinances out there. And there's a bunch. There's also a bunch of towns who don't have recall ordinances, which I think we need to acknowledge. My impressions of recalls, and again, I've been involved with government, you know, on a regional level for 20, 30 years, is that they really can create chaos. They can divide a community. They can create a lot of bitterness. I think people think they're solving a problem by having a recall ordinance, but I think it actually, many times from what I've seen, it can create chaos and not solve it. I've reviewed a bunch of those ordinances, the ones that Tim provided. You know, the essential question, which a lot of people had emailed us about, is like, what, you know, other than being convicted of a crime, what else would demand a recall? And then you get into this, some towns have absolutely nothing. It doesn't say, like, there's nothing. It doesn't say why you can recall somebody. And those towns are where it's like incredibly, it's used and it's sort of weaponized, in my opinion. So there's these, and then there's other towns possibly with some vague language, you know, moral turpitude. conduct unbefitting an office, an ethical violation. You know, there's all these sort of, you know, all this language that is totally open to interpretation. And, I haven't found any that is very specific about what you know, grounds for removal other than a crime. So I guess my point is, I don't think that this town should be the ones to define those terms. And I don't want to spend the money to do that. We have a lot of other stuff going on, much bigger issues to deal with. I appreciate everybody who's come up and sent us stuff and talked about why this is needed, but I still have yet to hear any really rational or specific concern that would be dictate a removal from office. So that's sort of where I'm at.
All right, excellent. Mallory.
I also, really appreciate all of the input that we've heard from people on this topic. We've heard, this is, I think, in my time on the town council, the thing we've heard from the most people about. And I really took it to heart. This was one that kind of, when it initially was brought to our attention, I was kind of like, yeah, I think we should do that. And, this has been one of the issues that I've kind of really struggled to figure out where I landed on this. I do hear what everyone's saying about there potentially need to be a need to implement some further recall action. I think that however, should be limited to kind of council action. John kind of spoke to our charter. I think that our charter is not super clear, moral turpitude, to use Paul's language. It's not abundantly clear to me what steps the council could potentially take if a situation like this were to arise. I think that could be beneficial. I, though, agree with Paul and agree with Sam that I don't think that this is something that the council should take up right now. I think we have too many other things going on. I think we have our own internal work to do to figure out how we can work together as productively as possible before we take up a really sensitive topic. I think this is something that if we were to work on it would span many months. I think it would be worthy of forming a committee including counselors as well as the residents, because I do think any recall ordinance would have a huge implication for the town. I also just want to remind everybody that we have 3-year terms, and I think it takes about 2 years to really kind of get the full swing of things. And so if come year 3, anyone is unsatisfied with our performance, we live in a democracy and demonstrate that at the polls. And I just will remind everyone as well that the option is available to the public at any time to propose their own recall ordinance and bring that to us. There's a process that can be followed. This happened a couple of years ago where we had a gentleman in town craft some language related to marijuana ordinances. And that came before the town via ballot because they followed that process. And if this is something that the people of the community think they need so much, then I think that is the appropriate mechanism for them to follow. So at this point, I think that this is not something that the council should continue to entertain. However, I do think it would be worthwhile at some point in the future to bring this topic up again once the council is a little more settled and functioning better. And it could be something that we could talk about as far as like an internal council action to build into our charter or our rules of ordinance and rules of procedure. But I don't think that this is something that we should take up in the way that has been proposed.
Thank you. Joel?
Just a quick point of information for the chair. To change the town's charter, we need a formal vote from residents, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, so like, I don't need to go into other people's points with this. I'm also a no, just because it's not up to us. It's not up to the 5 of us. It's up to the people of South Berwick. That's it. If people want to do it, great. I wrote a 6-page proposal. Be happy to share with anybody on what it could look like. But go to our town office, gather the 10% of people to do it, and let's get it on the ballot. Ballot choice.
All right. Census is I could float either way. I was the one that pushed it out when a constituent brought it to us. Again, there's 5 of us for a reason. We cannot vote obviously in a workshop, but going by consensus, I don't think, again, it would be a useful exercise for the council if we don't really have an appetite for it to dig into this. There are other avenues, as Joel and Paul and Mallory and Sam have all spoke to. So with that being said, I would say we will end the workshop and thank everybody for coming out tonight, and we will move on and see everybody Tuesday night at the meeting. Good,
Great.
all right, thank you, everybody.
I'll make a motion to adjourn the
Oh,
workshop.
yeah, sorry.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I apologize, I'm a little lax tonight.
That was just running.
Usually,